Hi everyone. Um, so you might recognize this uh this video format, I guess. Um, but usually, or at least it used to take place on like, Twitch streams. But now it's going to mostly take place in this YouTube video format rather than stream. So like a live stream type thing that's going on. Um, but yeah, this I don't. We used to call this Best Bud Fridays, but it's not Friday, and it's also well. I mean, we are Best Buds, but it's weird to call it Best Bud Thursday because this will be uploaded whenever. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like it's just a I don't know. So we'll have to come up with a title for.
yeah, at some point. Yeah, and and it's been a while since we've done uh this Best Bud podcast for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
Like,
um well, I'll just say though that um talking to Dusty about like me being away from the Best Bud Fridays thing and being on putting this podcast on hiatus, I believe, since March.
yeah.
Yeah, so that way I can work on other things, like work on my projects and so forth. But then I thought, like, um, I think past, man, it's like April, May, man, 3 months already. I figured that, and this has been a little bit of a conversation with Dusty about this, like, on bringing back this podcast again. But then it'll be in a different format, like you said, Dusty, about putting this podcast in a new channel where we can talk one on one instead of hosting this podcast on a live stream on Twitch. And
Hmm.
so um, we've been thinking about that for a bit, but then I know that I've been away from this podcast for a while, but I was still on uh, social media still. But then there were a few breaks here and there, and I figured I think I told Dusty about this that I kind of miss this podcast, and so we figured we just want to bring it back, but it'll be uploaded in YouTube, and yeah, that's what we kind of thought of, and so
You want to talk
yeah,
about why we moved to YouTube rather than the stream?
yeah, it's man, it's gonna take some explanation to talk about this, but the reason why we thought it'll be easier to upload these podcasts in a YouTube format is because I think as I said before, it'll be easier for us, for me and Dusty, to have like a one-on-one conversation and not let Dusty be distracted with others watching the podcast live, and even other distractions as well. That's one of them. But then it also pertains to, like, I'm a private person because I don't usually go on when it comes to the past uh Best Bud streams. I felt that I didn't paid attention to the chat often. I didn't pay attention to the viewers often. And I know that I made a comments here or there, but I don't usually write comments in the chat window. And it's easier for me to talk to Dusty one on one, so that way I would feel comfortable about this. And it also pertains to, like, um being shy often. Uh when seeing these other people on live streams, and when talking to Dusty, when having, like, I don't know, being like when we're explaining some things that will go a while, and then I don't know how would people would think about it and so forth. It's just it feels comfortable to like talk to Dusty on one, and so that would feel okay with me. Just to do a recording of these podcasts with Dusty here, and I guess it'll be fine from now on. And I don't know if that's what fully explains why we transition here, but been having these past conversations with Dusty on like between after we put the Best Bud stream on hiatus till now. um it's it's mostly like figuring things out in life, like, and I don't know if I want to go anything further, but I just want to ask Dusty if there's anything that I need to explain further on why we're doing this format before I just move on to anything, so to speak. And
I mean, like, I don't. I think you explained the gist of it. Like you said it yourself. You're a generally private person, so it's easier for you to focus on a 1v1 conversation rather than like bouncing back and forth between uh me and then looking at chat too, because it can
mhm.
be you're keeping your focus on multiple things is very difficult because then you lose your train of thought. Like you also mentioned,
Yeah,
because you're shy, it like hard for you to communicate with people, especially that you don't. This is a little bit easier.
yeah, and I'm comfortable with not just Dusty, but a few people around my private space. And so, yeah, I kind of want to apologize to others. Well, I don't know. I want to apologize to people that, yes, I'm still a private person at heart. And for these upcoming podcasts in this new YouTube channel that we're going to figure out when we design the new channel, then uh, yeah, something to get used to with these podcasts as they go on. But yeah, that those are the reasons why we're doing this. But I figured um the reason we're resuming the podcast is that I think I said again that we're resuming this podcast because me and Dusty kind of thought we missed it, and then we decided to do these podcasts on YouTube. And I know I said this before, but I just want to delve deeper into. I know this is gonna feel personal for me, and so I might just ask the viewers to like hang on for what's gonna happen
Yeah,
because I
quick content warning.
yeah. So I don't know if I don't I think I told Dusty about this sometimes where um I think this very first episode is dedicated for me to like catch up on things and going into personal things, and especially for me. And I even told Dusty about what how I've been doing and whatnot. But lately, in a recent conversation, I just went through a lot of sad stuff, and I know I was like trying to cope with loss, with like a last grandparent and a pet of my sister's passed away. So there's that. But then um there's also my like I'd say like to address weaknesses within myself. Weaknesses that I couldn't control in the past and until now. And these weaknesses also pertain to why I'm feeling a very private feeling very private in the first place. Like why I'm not willing to interact people much. And yeah, and it'll be hard for me to say, but I was man, yeah, in the recent past, like not just because of loss, but also because whenever I'm feeling alone, whenever I feel private, or not willing to talk to anybody. And it would and I would say to myself that it's it feels fine to interact with people sometimes. And I also just like remember in the college days where like when I was working on my bachelor's program, uh I had like good colleagues that I've made friends with. And we were good friends for throughout the program and whatnot. But after we graduated and yeah, after we graduated from college, it feels like we like say goodbyes and then move on to our new ways and then moving into new phases of life. And sometimes I think like the new phases of life could be very different. Like I'm living in a new place now and uh like working at a new job and then uh have to like make new friends again whom I feel nervous to make friends with because some of the people that I interact with are tend to be old per se, and and I know there is some young people around, but then when it comes to interacting with people, it feels like there's they're so busy with their lives, and I felt that I think I shouldn't distract them that much, and so that I let that slide for the past several years, and at first it felt good, but then it doesn't feel good after. And so, what if I try to do other things? And that's just why I asked Dusty if we just like started the Best But Fridays thing to see what other people would think of me. And then I tried my best to uh, talk about myself and so forth and learn other things like that I appreciate the guest streams and how it feels fun to interact with new people and whatnot. But some time passes and they would be busy with their own stuff. And I would be busy with my own stuff. And then sometimes like I would work things on my own. And I've been uh doing a lot of things in life. And sometimes doing a lot of things in life would like stress myself out. It would let me to be anxious. And later on, um, it felt because I have this like self doubts on people doing other things in life, and I don't want to interrupt them too much. It makes me feel, mm, when I think about it, it just makes me feel depressed. Like, man, and sometimes when I log into social media, I would just look on what other people are doing, and it just makes me feel, man, if I were there, if I were just there, to see how they're doing, and
Like you're the
I yeah, like I was left out, and it makes me feel more afraid, more anxious, to dive in, like to like what Dusty is doing and the other friends that Dusty made. It just makes me feel this feels so new to me, and I don't know how to adapt to it. And so it's been a big struggle for me where I've been going through negative emotions lately, where I've been trying to like maintain a balance in life, but then I sometimes fail in doing that. And so uh basically like I've been doing a lot of things in life where like I'm maintaining like a balance between work and then life and then like making sure I do a good job at work and then do the best I can to help with like coworkers and then family and then friends and even work more on my passions. But then there'll be some kind of like fluctuation into what focuses what needs to be focused the most. And sometimes that would be like working on my passions the most often. But if I focus on that, then I would be distant from the other people around me. Like sometimes I would feel guilty if I don't do a good job at work, or I feel guilty that I just want to stay in my room and work on my own things, or be alone outside of the house, like being away with my parents. And so it is a lot to handle. And also, not only that, not only like stressing myself out, being anxious and whatnot, but I had a recent conversation with my mom last Monday, and well, by the way, like after the loss of like the two losses, my parents went to Washington State just to prepare some things for my sister's wedding because her wedding is coming in August, and so I stayed to take care of the dogs and some other and the other pets as well as like uh trying to relax myself and even going through teleworking and whatnot, and doing my best what I can do with my stories and projects, and even learning more about my what I can do with storytelling and whatnot. And so there's that. But then my parents came back, I think, last Monday, and they asked me how I've been doing because I told them about I've been truly feeling like been depressed and anxious. And not only that, but I reserved a doctor's appointment lately and just going through a annual exam and then going through blood work. But then when a doctor asked me, have you been feeling depression, anxiety? And I paused for a moment and I said, yes. And so I have to fill out a worksheet. And I just noticed that I've been having like moderate levels of depression. And I had a discussion with the doctor for a while, and he provided me resources on what I can do to make me feel happy and to like relieve myself of all the stress that I've been going through. And so there have been helpful resources like finding opportunities outside of work, outside of the home, and find people who have the same interests as me. Like maybe going through continuing education or volunteering and some other opportunities. Like there's that. But then I just want to jump back into um, my parents coming back from Washington State, and my parents asked me how I've been doing, and I told them, well, I've just felt still worn out, and so they went through a long trip, and then they relaxed, and I know that uh, my mom had a conversation with me, and it was a deep conversation where she would ask me questions on what's causing you to feel all this stress and whatnot, and that is finally the moment where I finally have to vent out everything, what I've been withholding within myself. All that depression and anxiety and stress that's been going on within me, all that emotional imbalance within me, has to be all left out because it would feel good at one moment to let out all the negative emotions, all the negativity inside of me be let out. And when that happens, I know that I just like cried. I cried a lot. And so, uh, that made me feel it made me feel very sad, but then it made me feel relieved that I was able to let out all of that suffering out from the past several years. And it started since like Man, I just remember the fun moments back in the 2010s. I think especially in the second half. No, no, no. I think the 2010s. I will count for that whole decade where I would love having fun at school and then having fun learning with like friends. Um, Having fun learning with like in college and in being with colleagues and even working with Dusty on the projects he's working on. I think that's very fun to do. But then as we move on with our lives and then do some other things that we felt interested in, it just makes me feel sad that I wasn't be able to be active and not to be involved in much and not to like make new friends and whatnot. Because I know that like my parents encouraged me to find new friends, and I know you, Dusty, encouraged me to find new friends, even my sister as well. But then I failed to do it. I didn't. I didn't take the initiative to do it because I felt to myself that I would do everything for myself. But then I just sometimes I felt that I just can't, and I kept persisting. But I just felt like at this moment to like let everything go within my mind, and so I have to let go of like uh don't don't like don't have some pride in yourself for long, I would say, nor don't feel like have any negative emotion within myself. And so mentally there's been a lot going on within me mentally, but I think after that conversation with my mom, I think that was very helpful for me to like let go of everything that I've been going through from the moment I graduated from college till now. And and I know I did my best in things, but it's mostly what I find meaningful is the stuff that I enjoy doing the most. But even though that I love to do the things that I love most, I cannot forget that there are other things that need to be balanced in life. And I, as I said before, like maintaining a work-life balance and even having time with passions and so forth, and even not being too hard on myself and not work too hard. And so it is personally my faults, my flaws in doing these things. But then recently, I decided to let that all go, and I just figured that I just wanna. I think I said this a few times where I wanted to start things over again. But then I felt like this time, I will admit it. Like I just want to like start things all over again, and then uh reaching out to Dusty like, hey, like, do you want to continue with this podcast? And then he said, yeah. And then we're doing it now, and not only that, but also like doing small things out of time, which I've sometimes forgot and ignored about. But then once I feel the reality of it, that's when I have to like calm myself down and focus on what could I do today. That's like for every day, what can I do today? And not do a lot of things every day, but what is some things, what are small things that I can do every day? And so I've been like I've been doing that. And even it's really helpful when I went on like I think I mentioned a spiritual journey in Twitter. Like been doing a lot of
Off
that
of
meditation. Yeah, off of Twitter. So I've been doing a lot of meditation and I'm still doing it till now because sometimes it'll be the the mental imbalance within me still kicks in. And so um I'd say it's not easy, but I'm still persevering. Not just going out on top, not being like too ambitious and then eventually something big happens where like if I were to publish stories and whatnot, I would like people to love me, but that's not gonna happen. And I've been people remind me, and then some, and I kept reminding myself, which I failed to do, is like don't please everyone. And so I have to uh let go of that. You're not let go of attention seeking, so to speak, and then focus on my projects, like focus on self expression. Like, how would I think about these projects that define me as like an aspiring artist, an aspiring writer, and eventually an aspiring like filmmaker and whatnot. And so there's that, but also taking that time off just to like be with family and friends, just to see how they're doing, and like not being too distant all the time, not being too like negative from them, because I know that I've made mistakes in straining relationships. And so there's that, and then feeling too bad at myself and what I do in my job. But everything that I've been going through, it's less stressful than I've imagined. And recalling back to my mom's conversation, is she asked me three questions on who's gonna work on this, who's gonna work on that, who's gonna work on that, like who's doing all of this work, and eventually made someone stress themselves out. And all of those three questions pertain to one answer, and that is me. I've been the one who's been struggling a lot, where I have high expectations, but then they cannot be fulfilled if need be. And so I have to lessen myself and think more of the small things in life. And so it's, I'd say it's like a work progress for me. And I know that I will
Or you continue
be
with
able
your
to
pain.
feel better eventually. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, it looks high.
Yeah,
So,
it's been
yeah.
robotic. So the recording is catching every other word, but it's missing out.
Mm, yeah. And so that, I don't know if that would affect that recording and whatnot. I don't know.
It caught some of the words you were saying, but
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I just want to say, like, in summary, um, I think in the past years or so, um, I've been going through a lot of things mentally, but uh, it feels like when you're at a young age and trying to figure out what you really want to do in life, you're starting to have some like existentialism in life. And that's what led me to like existential depression, where I don't know what I'm doing in this life. And that just makes me feel stuck in my room, maybe most of the time. And so that just makes me doing nothing. And I thought that would feel good, but then I would feel guilty about it. And so, you know what, I'm sorry, folks, for going like explaining all of this. But I felt with this first episode, it felt like a personal. It'll be my chance to say some personal things on what I've been going through, and then yeah, and I think, yeah, I think Dusty will understand as well, and I think all of you will understand as well. And so I'd say, yeah, just for your understanding. And so,
I
yeah.
understand. I mean, like it's okay to like in a bit. You've been going through some stuff.
Hmm.
You hadn't made it public until now. It's understandable, and hopefully, I think that
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I think the way you put it, right? Like when you are so like our entire lives, or at least some of us, we're put on like this path of go to school, then we're
Mhm.
supposed to go to college, and we're supposed to find a job, and
Mhm.
just stay like stable income. Feel like we need, but
Yeah. So that's about it.
that doesn't. I imagine to you that doesn't feel fulfilling.
Yeah. And I mentioned about that before, especially with this writing stuff that I talked about in the Best Bud Fridays, is something that I really want to fulfill in writing stories and creating them if possible. And so, yeah, there's that. Like, there's something lacking within me. Like, everything is good around me, but I felt that there's something lacking. And I felt that going through the arts, like practicing as an artist, would be the thing for me. But that's going to take a while for me to like learn the craft and improve yourself on the craft. And eventually, you'll be creating these works where they won't be perfect, but they'll become a learning experience over time. And so, and the mis- I have to admit that the mistakes that I made, that I just want to be done with them right away. But there'll be obstacles along the way where I have to rethink some things and I don't want to think further. And then and with all the juggling of all these rewrites and so forth, it just makes me feel I'm stuck. And so that also adds to my depressions. Like, is this where I really want to go? But then it's block the way I'm doing is like blocking my way to fulfillment, so to speak. And then even stepping that away makes me feel I'm not being fulfilled. It's just focusing on this one thing, and then makes me feel I'm so narrow minded in like focusing on this one thing. And so it's it just feels like a big struggle. And I see that the ping is like fluctuating still,
You
but I
want
guess
to
it's fine.
do you want to host the call instead of me so that maybe just the connection?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay, I'll hang up and then call.
Yeah.
Give us just a moment, folks. We're just re-hosting really quick so that we'll next up. All
I'm
right,
gonna change it to
all right. So
okay.
we're back. Um,
Yep. We're back.
okay. Hopefully that's fixed.
Yeah, and I think yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the ping is still fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Are we good?
no, it was in red for a second, but I think it's good, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Remain cautious.
But yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Um. You basically feel like you've either plateaued or you've hit a wall, or like, because it's not necessarily, because writer's block is, it happens to a lot of people, but I feel like it's more than that. Not just right,
Mhm.
like hit
Mhm.
a wall where you're like not able to. Once you feel like you're not able to progress, you just feel like what can I do, stuff like
Mhm. Yeah. And and especially at a young age where I felt all the energy to do whatever I want. But yes, you're right about this, Dusty, that I've been hitting roadblocks every now and then. And it just feels personally deep on not being able to do anything. And so I won't be able to like reach the top in just like in a certain amount of time. For that's going to take a while if possible and feel truly on what these projects feel personally to me. And so I'd say yeah, it's going to take a lot of relaxation, a lot of meditation, like to focus on things that are the most important. And I'm not going to throw away that passion. No, I'm not. There are other things that would like help me, like as I said in the doctor's appointment, there are resources that would be there to like they'll be there for healing. And I've been looking like been contemplating about this and then thinking about opportunities like returning to my best friend and then like thinking about going to the podcast and what we're going to do about things and then even for even for others as well, like put myself like think less about myself and think about what others want from me. Well, not personally want from me, but me always me just being there for them and not for myself. And so I'd say there's going to be a lot of like meditation and healing going on. But yes, it's it will take a while. And yeah, you were
Well,
going to say.
a little back, like, because you should want to be able to prioritize want to do.
Mhm.
Like you should feel like you'd want to be able to
Mhm.
pursue those things. But I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, shouldn't set your expectations of how things work too high because you know how they're gonna happen. So
Mhm.
you should instead you when you work on something, you should not you feel like you don't want to like nowadays with this mindset you want to be able to strive for a mindset where you're just able to enjoy the process
Mhm.
as opposed
At first it's like pleasing people. But then later on, I think I was reminded by my mom just to enjoy it. Enjoy what I personally want to work on. So that's what I've contemplated uh in time about that. Is that I do stuff for personal enjoyment and not to please people. So yeah.
I think that's super important to recognize what you set for you is like
Mhm.
once you've planned out what you want to start to be what you want to start doing then it's easier for you to get in the mindset of trying to satisfy yourself with the process. Because then you
Mhm.
know that you're making progress, and then it's like what you used to tell me about like how I enjoy small successes, because like they're all
Mhm.
leading to something, and it's just a matter of at that point, are you enjoying the thing that you're? If you are, then you're 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 setting out what you want to do. You're like not gonna lose sight or lose.
Mhm. I would like to say though that I think I've made some no, I think I made like I've created a post And then we often talk about my favorite instructor that I've looked towards. Um,
Probably.
I'd say, yeah, I'd appreciate learning all that stuff, and it builds up like what I need to know on how certain genres work, how certain conventions work. But I think attaining all that knowledge will be put into practice on what I uh envision my projects to be. But yeah, I didn't make any progress in my projects and whatnot. It's because I get stuck most of the time thinking, does this work or does this not work? And so it'd be easier for me if I just learn how writing works, and not just writing, but also how directing works. And so that way I would have like a foundation on how these these things work, how writing works, how directing works. And so um it's I'd say I'm developing my knowledge and having these like resources at hand. But when it comes to projects, I think I would feel a bit confident on how I could improve my projects and where I can go from there. And even like the projects can be like a long-term goal. But then I think I said to you before where I've been thinking about making some random skits like with my phone and just make some comedic bits.
Yeah.
That will just like make me not feel depressed and make me not feel stuck all the time. And I think I'm just gonna like post in whatever, even though it may make sense to people or not. And so there's that just to like look forward to. And so there's been like a lot of ideas that I've been thinking about and looking forward to. So there's that. But yeah, basically this first episode my my return to the podcast.
Sorry,
And
it it cut
oh,
out for like you said
oh
basically, and
really?
then it cut out after you said
Oh really?
basically.
Oh, okay. Checking my ping, sorry. It's at green.
Okay, might have been something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, say it again. Sorry.
Basically, the first episode is where I get to explain, well, like it's like a good return for me to like talk to Dusty again in the podcast, but it's also explaining my personal feelings on my personal feelings on and overcoming them, uh trying to overcome them in the past and trying to overcome them in the present and so forth. And so yeah, there's been like a lot of juggling on what needs to be done in life. And so yeah, I figured that this would be an opportunity to do that. And so yeah, I just did that. And yeah. And I think we didn't keep track of the time. Like when did we start? Was it 9:40? Oh, we started at
The
9:40.
recording is at 44 minutes 15.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, but we were just doing some test recordings. And what Dusty and I thought about, we agreed on is like making these podcasts in about like an hour or an hour and a half if time permits. And so we just tend to like discuss things without any like we don't have a
Pre-planning.
structure on topics like yeah, any planning. This first episode doesn't have any planning. It's just like to try things out and then making me like talk and vent about the things on what I've been going through, and so yeah, it's I'd say it's worth it for the first episode of this podcast after 3 months uh after a 3 month hiatus, and so yeah, I'd say that the I see the ping is doing all right. Oh,
It
it's
dropped
going
just a
to
little.
red.
Dropped a
Yeah,
little.
yeah, and it's gone back, and so yeah, and I'd say yeah.
Um, I think as far as like the structure, it's not really something that we were thinking about because
Mhm.
in the past when it came to us structuring the Best Bud Friday podcast, it initially when we did it, it was the basis type podcast, which ended up being difficult to
Mhm.
keep up with because we'd run out of topics. Um,
Yeah.
then when it came to bi-weekly, it was more manageable, but it was still something that like, and I'll say from my front as well. So like Nate was mentioning how he was having difficulty trying to divert his attention from the chat because he whenever we're having conversations, he really wants to like focus and make sure that he gets his point across, or like make sure that he's able to
Mhm.
talk about what he wants to. So whenever like someone in chat comes up and says something, like as far as courtesy is concerned, you know that you have to be able to pay attention to them as well, because if we're live
Mhm.
streaming and there are people talking, you generally want to make sure they're heard, because you know if they're taking the time out of their day to talk, might as well talk. Um,
Mhm.
so, but like with that being said, of course, Nate being the person who wants to focus on a conversation topic, and also being rather shy and not being able to communicate too much past the people that he's comfortable with, it's very difficult for
Mm.
him as the co-host of the podcast to do. And for me, um, the difficulty in maintaining a podcast with more than, at least any stream in general with more than one person is both trying to account for that kind of communication between chat and also with the person on the stream, as well as with
Mhm.
additional uh,
Mhm.
that are with us. So I'll say for this case, whenever it's just me and Nate, it's generally easier to do that because Nate is not a very rowdy person. Like as noted by the conversation, he's very calm and collected. But
Mhm.
when you have certain people
Al-
who,
Also getting into deep. I tend to go deep
yeah,
sometimes, and that is why you would hear me talk often, trying to get the point across.
yeah, and I don't like interrupting him, but like because of the
Yep.
nature of live stream, you have to like make sure you don't miss out on what people are saying. Because then if you miss out, then it feels bad because they took their time to write that, so you want to acknowledge because they're still people.
Mhm.
That being said, though, Nate is uh, one of the easiest people to like when you want someone to be like a collected, like behaved person as like part of a collab. He's one of the most like courteous people when it comes to that because you're not going to have an issue where everyone's going to be chaotic and you're going to have like a decent serious conversation. It's going to be nice and it's going to be very decent, as opposed to when there sometimes whenever you have certain individuals who hop in on stream, that like this is the case in general. Like I'm not trying to point out any or anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it gets difficult to maintain a sort of order on the stream, especially if you are the stream host, because
Mm-hmm.
then you have to make sure you rein in those folks and make sure you're able to stay on topic. And sometimes it's just difficult because that's not how they operate. Um, so it's easier to maintain a format where it's you don't have to shift your focus on all three things because believe it or not, um, despite my manner on stream, I tend not to talk too much. Like I'm maybe less reserved than Nate, but that doesn't mean I'm entirely like open to talking to. I'm still very much shy. I don't talk to them. I still feel uncomfortable talking to certain people, and in fact, I I don't actively like seeking out voice chats and things like that. What I will do is, if there is a voice chat going on, I have something I want to do, I'll just hop in and just have them as background noise because it's just easier for me to focus while stuff is going on. Um,
Mm-hmm. You know what? We're very selective on how we perceive things, and if there's something that would interest us, then we try to go for it and see how it goes. And as time goes on, if you're comfortable with it, then you could stay along with like a certain group of friends or a certain kind of concept and whatnot. If you're comfortable with it, then you go for it for quite some time. But if not, then you might look for something else. Look for something else. Sorry.
yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And that's also like that. I think that's naturally the case for us. I think we're depending on how we behave amongst others. In the case of both of us, the way we will interact is if we have something to say that's related to the conversation topic, if
Hmm.
it interests us or if we're genuine, like to be want to talk about it.
Hmm.
But if it doesn't concern us or if it's not related or like general, not something that we want to pique our interest in or even like be curious about, then we will choose to say nothing often.
Or
Um,
say little and say nothing afterward.
yeah,
That could happen sometimes to us.
it's like
Yeah, and me too, man. I've been there.
and
So,
it's difficult too when it happens because sometimes you really want to put your best foot forward and you like care about a subject
hmm
because it's like it's something that might seem interesting to us and something that
hmm
sometimes we just don't have the best words to like on a conversation because we're not it I
well,
mean
to me, it seems like you have a better vocabulary than I do, and then you tend to speak well, but I tend to stumble a lot, and sometimes I think I'm not a good speaker. But I would say that I'm comfortable with writing my thoughts on paper or in posts.
I'm
That's where I feel more confident on. But speaking in general, to me, it's sometimes I think I'm not good at it
like,
because, like, I think, like you said, we're trying to like find the best words on how can we express ourselves the best we can or explain some things to people that would make sense.
I I think that's simply like it depends on like the circumstance when either when you're growing up or how accustomed you are to talking to other people or like letting your voice out or projecting it. Because
Hmm.
I'll just add this just as a small aside. When I was younger, um, like around 10 years old, mom was working at Walmart. And there's like, you know how sometimes at like those, like Walmart or like Target or wherever, you'll have those in store restaurants?
Hmm.
Um, Whenever I wanted to order something, I was usually too shy to order anything. But my
Hmm.
dad usually pushed me to like just order on my own if I wanted something. He'd give me the money, but like he'd push me to get the order. So like as part of a little bit of practice, I guess, to get some confidence speaking louder and like
Hmm.
ordering on my own. Um, I started
Yep.
like not necessarily being able to talk like a little more confidently, but like if I have something to say, if I if someone how should if something is prompted where I have to speak, uh, now what I generally do is I kind of like mentally prep myself to say something. Because again, I'm still a very shy person. I don't like speaking out loud whenever I have the chance. Just like you, I like to actually type out my words rather than have something to say because sometimes you just don't know what to say. Sometimes when someone confronts you with something, you don't always have the best words to say. And
Hmm. Nor do we have the knowledge.
yeah,
Like people assume we are know-it-alls. We know everything. And I even told you about this, Dusty, multiple times where someone I was a pool lifeguard at a time, and I'd say a guy would uh
I remember.
bring me over to well, would bring me over to a friend of his, and then that guy would say to his friend, "Yo, man, meet Nate, the smartest guy I ever met." And then and I say hi, but then in the back of my mind, I thought, "But I'm not,"
It's
because I make mistakes. I had failures,
yeah, same
and
here. It's
I
like
I I don't have perfect successes. Not in a consecutive record.
like
So
like we're confident in being unconfident, basically. We're we know we don't know, so we're like
yeah.
that's not true, but thank you. Um, and it feels weird. Uh,
Uh-huh.
have I ever told you about the Dunning Kruger effect?
I think you did, but can you explain it again?
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is sort of like a graph where it indicates at the very start of like when you're getting into an area of expertise that you can learn, but you're at the very start of it. Um, Generally, what people tend to do is with their very lack of experience, they will think they are experts at it or know-it-alls.
Oh. Oh.
But as you progress, you start to realize how much little you know until you become an expert. So it's like
Yeah.
we lack as our as the more we know grows, the less confident we because it's like, oh, I actually don't know that much. There's still so much I need to learn. So
Yeah.
I think,
I can
yeah,
I can relate to that very much when I'm currently at work. And I've been working for the past almost 5 years after college. But not only college after getting my bachelor's degree, but also I also got my master's degree. Yeah. And never th- I never expected to get a master's degree. Like after a bachelor's degree, I'm done because I just went through a lot in college, a lot of struggle and stress eating where I've gained over 200 plus pounds, where I've become obese. And then I've lost all that weight after graduating from college. And so, yeah, I've maintained like a stable weight. But yeah, I think, man, it's like you learn so much, but then to me, I think learning is fun, but then when it gets complex, it feels like your mind feels limited on which ideas do you think you can memorize, and then when you're being tested on, you would do the best you can to like answer the questions and whatnot, but then they were there to challenge you to like face the reality of things. And this is like a different phase after going through college, is where you have to relearn everything like back to square one when you're working at a job. And so you have to go through all that training uh to see what's going on uh with the workplace you're working in, but then there's still a lot to learn. And so I know that I've been getting some comments like what really makes me sensitive is that people seem to be like, I don't, the coworkers are nice and then they're doing the best they can with their jobs. But then when it comes to expanding their mindset to other aspects in a complex process, it makes sense that hey, you have to like integrate not just the one job you're working in, but then how does your job would affect the other areas within this complex process. And sometimes we try to do that, but then there will be like obstacles where we won't be able to like fulfill a criteria or be able to like deliver something on time and whatnot because we just lack the resources. And not only that, sometimes like some people would see us as experts, but then I would tell them that thank you for the comment, but I still got a lot to learn. And so, yeah, this happens sometimes in my work where I'm trying to learn the like a lot of things, but when it comes to like doing my job and whatnot, doing multiple things in my job, it makes me feel I can only do so little and trying to learn the best I
Only
can,
do
but
so much.
yeah, only do so much. That's like that's all I can do. And this happened to me in my previous job where I was been given a lot of work. Like the workload was huge and there isn't a lot of people to support me on it. But all those people have different experiences and then they do their best with their own skills to like satisfy some requirements and whatnot. But sometimes they don't go according as planned. And so there's been like a lot of scheduled delays and even arguments and division uh, between like the big office and then like the contractors and so forth. That's what happened in the previous job. And so like and I move into a new job that would do less work and do and be less stressful. And it works. But when it comes to going through a transition period where we have to work everything in digital, that is when people get confused where we don't have everything in store and we're trying to sustain something which will be disposed of uh later on. And so and that makes people question like what can we do about it? We're already at the end of time for this project to function and so forth. And so yeah, I felt that for several years. And this is something that like sorry to interrupt you about that,
No,
but
you're good.
yeah, yeah. But this
Yeah.
is something that we all went through. And yeah, we can only do the best we can.
Yep.
So
Like with what you're capable of. You only know what you're capable of, so you only know what you can accomplish.
mhm.
And in some ways too, I don't know if you feel this is like whenever we whenever we are like involved something that could be like taught as a concept, maybe. When
Mm-hmm.
someone asks us a question, I what I personally feel is that whenever I'm trying to explain something, I feel like I'm a bad teacher because like while I know how to do it and I know why and how it works, I don't know how to put it into words for someone else to understand because the way I
Mm-hmm.
understand things might be different from
Mm-hmm.
how another person
Mm-hmm.
like. Do you feel that way too? I don't know if that.
Uh, yeah, I felt that way too, and not just the both of us, but anyone would try their best to teach anyone. And the way we teach things are very unique on what others think.
It's different for
Like
everyone.
it would, yeah, like it would make sense to us, but then it would not make sense to others. And so, like that would happen in life circumstances, like in college. Like we ask help from colleagues on what can we do with projects and so forth, and even in our jobs too. What can we do uh, with this assignment or task and whatnot? And yeah, this often happens where we're not very good teachers. And even I sometimes like in my private times, I sometimes want to blame I'd say the education system for allowing teachers or professors and not doing a good job if I want to reflect on that. So,
It sucks too when they're like belittling about it. Like if they're teaching you something
yeah.
and like you don't know this, it's like yeah. What do you mean? This is new to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, they just don't get it.
I had an instructor. I was trying to ask them about a concept. They said like you don't or no, everyone was asking about something and the instructor was like you don't know what I'm telling you, you go figure it out. And it's like what kind of that's so frustrating. And I think it was
Uh-huh.
around like modulus counters. I eventually got an explanation by asking her personally. It was still frustrating to hear that because it felt belittling. Even even if he said it once, not everyone gets the concept right.
Mhm. And I sometimes don't want to ask a lot with instructors, and I often rely with colleagues instead because they're not around much in my college experience. And so they would have limited office hours. They would do things on their own time without carrying the students learning. But I appreciate a few who would be with the students to encourage active learning. And I know that there were a few in my college, and even lately, Robert McKee. He was he was very insightful, and even has the he even built the wisdom over 40 years of teaching uh storytelling. And and sometimes I heard that he would be mean at times, but then he would always prove the point that it would be the opposite of students trying to learn, but then McKee would always be there saying, "You don't know what you're doing because I've built up what I've learned in the past 40 years, and I'm lending my wisdom and knowledge to you. So I'm giving you everything that I've known. And so, and it is up to you to figure out how you're going to apply these principles into your own stories and so forth." But yeah, over the 40 years, he's learned a lot. And that's what I really appreciate from him. And like, he's around in his 80s now and still teaching and even still learning. So I really appreciate him as a really good instructor. Even someone would say, not only he's a good instructor on storytelling, but he could be an instructor on anything. But the key chose being an instructor for storytelling instead, just that one concept. that he really enjoyed. And it's something that other teachers would lack is teach something that they personally enjoy or they're being egotistical about it without being aware of like students trying to learn and so forth. And so but there are others who care about students learning, actively learn, like being committed to like master multiple concepts throughout and even maintaining those concepts over time, just like I did with like storytelling because I just love it, and especially with McKee, I've been maintaining the concepts over time. At first, I didn't get it, and I thought I didn't enjoy it when I read his books. But then, when rereading them again and going through the webinars and so forth, I really enjoyed them, and I've learned a lot for the past several years, and it makes me feel, yeah, with all this knowledge at hand, with all these resources, then I'll be able to look and what I can do for my projects at best, see what I can come up with, and so yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting, but yes, it can be frustrating at times. And being able to teach some other people and whatnot, and so
Because some concepts can be quite like you have to think about them because
uh huh.
they might be a little bit more abstract. To,
Yeah.
well, like if it's a practical thing, might not be necessarily that abstract to describe. But like if you're
No.
trying to explain a visual or sort of like like a scenario of like how someone is feel like, so if you're trying to craft a story or in this particular case a scene, trying to establish how a character would feel,
Hmm.
it's always different for everyone, so you won't be able to like teach someone how to craft a character like that or a specific,
Hmm.
so that's why some of that is difficult in, or like let's say you're trying to accomplish a certain thing in art piece, right?
Hmm.
To someone who does not know how to do it, sometimes you will experience difficulty trying to explain it to the person what you're trying to achieve.
Hmm.
They still might not.
Hmm.
That's just gonna happen. Just
Hmm.
can't avoid it. So all you can do is do your best to explain it. If they can't get it, then right,
Yeah.
not like you completely neglect.
Yeah. Never. And and I think I just want to refer to like you're not gonna please everyone with what you have, and there'll be people who admire you, and then people who reject you. So
I think the only thing you can ask for then is like what you can to the best of your capability. And
yeah, and and I think no matter what people think of you, at least you have some people who respect you, and then you'll have that dignity earned, that self-respect earned for doing the best you can, for doing everything you can. And so you would just like pat yourself on the back for doing this. So yeah, I think that's all that matters is not to like think too much on what other people think of you, but just think of like reflecting on how you enjoy things. Like you can enjoy the small things and then even enjoy building up something big. And so and I think it'll be worthwhile just to see what you've done in life with all you've done. And so there's that.
it's difficult for some people to realize that. than some.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is why you have all these expectations. No, I think people would be satisfied with this, but then you don't really know what they're truly thinking deep inside of themselves. And that is why it's really important just to have that self awareness, that contemplation, just to see who you really are and why you're behaving in these ways and why you're doing the things that you want to do and how that affects your relationships and how you perceive the world around you. It's like all of these things. And so, I mean, you may have the will to do things on the outside, but you don't have the like on I think I was gonna say, but you don't have the reasons why you're doing that from the inside. I was trying to say something like that.
Yeah. If if it's all based on trying to appeal to your audience rather than like
Hmm.
truly in your own work, then
Hmm.
it'll show. People will be able to tell when you're not being authentic to what you.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of making sure that you do your best to find yourself or what you do or what you enjoy,
Hmm.
reflect off of. It's not to say that you shouldn't care about other people, but when it comes to the stuff you, it should always be because you it or you.
Hmm. And I think that would help relax you from all the distractions happening. Where um, I've seen a video on YouTube multiple times, and it's very relaxing on how this composer wants to work on a dream with music in his own personal time. And even though that he had a prolific career, and by the way, the composer I'm referring to is the guy who made music for The Lord of the Rings. Over time, he'd been making music for business, but then personally to himself, he just wants to enjoy creating music for himself. And he felt relaxed by it. It's like no matter what music he creates, like making like small progress, like making good progress on his music, and when he's done by it, then he's relaxed. Well, I'd say making progress relaxes him, and then eventually being done with his music, it relaxes him on how and see how it plays out for him, and not worry about anyone because that just shows his like authenticity. Another composer who I admired wanted to create music for planes. Like wow, and so he would just like make an orchestral piece for
Planes
his
is
thoughts on flying.
oh I
So,
see.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's
No,
like
you're good.
interrupt.
Yeah, I was confused for a second.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing with a Lord of the Rings composer, where he's been making music through all that Hollywood business. But he personally enjoyed what he thought about flying in airplanes, like riding on a private jet and creating music on while riding on a private jet, like flying around the sky and so forth. And that can be beautiful sometimes. And not only create music, but also he can fly on his private jet and so forth. And so I think that's really fast. Be less distracted from what's happening in the world around you and focus on what's really real to you, what you think is beautiful to you. That's something that you create out of beauty, and that is something that you could like work yourselves toward to. Yeah, all that authenticity would be worth it. uh, when working on something that you enjoy the most. So,
Like the, the truest feeling of accomplishment, the thing that you've
hmm
been able to achieve.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I sometimes yearn, yearn to do. So, and that just makes me wonder, like, I have a day job. I'm financially stable, so I'm still saving, but I'm not gonna give up my job just to focus on my passion only. And then there's also like taking care of others, as well as taking time on the projects that I feel genuine about, and not worry about the Hollywood business, not worry about the film business, because the film business, I've been hearing these things multiple times from my parents that the business is unstable and it's unfair with all this minimum wages and then AI, and then not uh and then distributing films that would just like increase their budgets for for absurd reasons, for visual effects galore and whatnot. And so I don't want to think about that business, but I just want to personally create my own stuff that I just love imagining every day. And that just makes me like love the imagination more, but not only that, but like love myself more, because that's what I often lacked in life as I grew up. The lack of loving yourself is what causes you to feel all the negativity around you is without loving yourself. So, yeah. So that's important. It's important to love yourself always. And yeah. Oh, what's that?
I think that's well said.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Um, any closing thought? I don't know. I feel like have we hit a natural exhaustion of this topic at this point? I think.
Yeah, I think I've said everything I can in this episode, and I think the first episode, uh, and I think it's a relief that I'm back and doing podcast again with Dusty, and so I think it's gonna be I think we're gonna take time on how we plan out these podcasts, and this time though we're gonna think like somewhat deep on what we want to talk about these podcasts, and not work on these podcasts on a
Obli-
schedule.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it felt obligated last time because we were on a schedule. This time we're just gonna take our time. It's gonna be sort of a personal project rather than a something that, well, I mean, it was always a personal project, I guess, because like it,
hmm
but because of how more closed off it is to like more exclusive it is to like a YouTube video than it is a stream. It's gonna be easier
hmm
to have more personal conversations and stuff like
Yeah, and I was also thinking not just us, but then I mentioned before that I also missed talking to guests if we didn't get the chance. Uh, well, I think I guess I didn't get a chance to talk more often with the podcast with guests, and so I think I want to consider inviting guests again whenever we can,
that. Mhm.
and come up with a good time for to invite them and whatnot. And so yeah, I whatever we plan on in the future, we'll upload these podcasts whenever we can. And yeah, you'll be hearing us. You'll be listening to us to yeah, you'll be listening to what we have in mind, just to allow ourselves to be genuine to ourselves. But then when we have other interesting topics to talk about and then invite other guests, then we can come up with other things with future podcasts as we go forward. And so, yeah, it'll be something to look forward to. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess that
And
about.
I yeah, and I'd say it's good to be back so in the
Yeah.
podcast.
I
So,
think this is a good way to like get back into stuff.
mhm.
Um,
I'd say it's good that we're back and doing this. Yeah. But yeah, I just want to thank you all for stopping by and listening to what we have to say in this first podcast. And yeah,
if you stuck around for this long, appreciate you guys' viewership and support.
always.
You're never obligated to like stick around as long as you do, but if you have as long, appreciate it because that means that
hmm
you took the time to really, at the very least, even if you have it in the background, that you took the time to like want to listen in and hear maybe potential things to say here. Do appreciate it.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, I agree.
that'll about do it for us on whatever we're gonna call this. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I guess we'll figure out after we're done recording.
yeah. Um,
So,
that'll about do it though. Uh,
yeah.
hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you next time. The next podcast.
mhm. Yep. We'll see you all next time.
Take care.
All right. See you, everyone.